We're telling you the entire history of cats. Yes, all of them. From their humble beginnings as civet-like carnivores to the great variety of species of today, it has been a long and windy road. But for millions of years, cats have slowly turned into almost perfect killing machines. So why are there so many cat species? And what happened to the saber-tooth, the American lion, and all the other amazing species that disappeared? Let's find out. Today, we're talking about all the cats that we know of that have ever lived. It's an incomplete picture because many species lived in places like rainforests, which made it very difficult for their bones to fossilize. But we're going to tell you about everything that we know about the species in the fossil record, and also how they went from looking like stretched civets to the beautiful, majestic creatures that we know and love today. No love lost for civets, by the way. Our story begins in Europe, around 30 million years ago. The continent was warmer than it is today, and was covered in forests. They weren't quite tropical jungles, but more like the humid forests of Appalachia. In the branches of these trees lived Proilurus, the oldest cat we know of. This was the Proilurus, aka the dawn cat. They were the size of a Maine Coon cat, but were shaped like a civet. They lived part of their lives in trees, but could possibly also hunt on the ground. Proilurus was an ambush predator and likely ate small rodents and rabbits. So some of the key features of cats were already there. Their teeth are what set them apart from their non-cat ancestors, who had a more generalized diet and whose molars were for chewing plants. Proilurus was already going into hypercarnivory. They could only eat meat, which is still how cats are today. But they weren't alone for long. Other cat species started to show up around 20 million years ago. In Africa, Cadyphelus, Namophelus, and Diamantophelus lived in the woodlands of the southern part of the continent. They still had the longer snout of the cat ancestors. In Europe, Stereophelus was starting to show the modern shape of the cat, with a shorter body than Proilurus. Fossils found in Europe show a cat that was becoming more compact, agile, and built for stalking. It had short forelimbs and long hind limbs, which suggest it was good at climbing and probably preferred the forest, such as the Miocene woodlands of Madrid. We know very little about these cats because there's only a handful of fossils. But what we do know is that they would give rise to the last common ancestor of all modern cats and saber cats. This was the Pseudilurus. It appeared around 20 million years ago and crossed the Bering Strait into North America about 1 million years later. This was the first cat that you could look at and immediately recognize as a feline. Unlike Proilurus's civet-like gait, it walked on its toes like modern cats. Their snout was shorter, their canines got bigger, and their molars got even smaller. From this point on, cats wouldn't do any food grinding. Their teeth would specialize to slice flesh. Cats were also getting pretty big. As Pseudilurus spread throughout the habitats of the Northern Hemisphere, different species showed up, and some of them were as big as cougars. Oh my God, there's a cougar! These were no longer small game hunters. During their era, the world was cooling and grasslands were spreading. Mammals evolved quickly to the savanna lifestyle by getting larger and faster. Without the cover of the forest, they were always exposed to predators, so they had to be quick or be dead. Early horses, deer, and camelids grazed in these new environments, and the Pseudilurus was one of their predators. Like a puma hunting a vicuna, they would stalk their prey, then have an explosive burst of acceleration, and then would grapple their prey and bring it down. As these cats spread all over Eurasia and North America, they filled new niches, and new species appeared. 17 million years ago, North American Pseudailuris gave way to Hyperilorictus. They were also cougar-like cats and were the first cat genus to be native to North America. They were the size of leopards. At this time, North America was warmer, greener, and filled with forests, open woodlands, and rivers. In these environments, Hyperilorictus were stealthy ambush predators of birds, early deer, and other ungulates. The Miocene had been warm and heavily forested, but the climate was cooling. Forests were breaking up, and grasslands were taking over. The big winners from this change were hoofed grazing animals, whose diversity exploded during this period. Many of them grew larger. They formed herds in open terrain. And none of these megafauna seemed particularly interested in looking normal. Check out the Chalicotheres, the 8-foot-tall herbivores described as a blend between a horse, a gorilla, and a sloth. It was a strange time to be a plant. Animals in colder climates often become larger. Larger bodies are usually better at retaining heat, storing fat, and traveling long distances. This is known as Bergmann's rule. These hefty meals and open landscapes meant predators had to adapt. As prey got larger, it got harder to wrestle it down like Pseudailuris used to. Some of these cats became so specialized at hunting these large prey that they transformed their heads into daggers and became pro bullfighters. These were the saber-toothed cats. Instead of refining the short-muzzled, suffocating bite we see in modern lions and pumas, saber-toothed kitties lengthened their upper canines to stab their prey in the throat. One of the oldest known species was Myomachirotis pseudailuroides. As the name suggests, it still looked pretty similar to a Pseudailuris, but the teeth were getting the iconic sabers. It represents an early step in saber-tooth evolution, when ordinary cat-like predators were starting to experiment with longer, blade-like canines. They look like cat Draculas, but the new adaptation was a huge hit. These kitties definitely match the freak of their megafauna prey. But before we get carried away, I shall pause and acknowledge that saber-tooth is a word that gets thrown around a lot. And to be fair, saber cats weren't even the first ones to try this overachieving canine shtick. Before the so-called true felid saber-tooths, there were nimravids, which were distant, cat-like carnivores with their own saber teeth. They looked similar, but they weren't true cats. If you zoom out even further, the first animals to ever evolve saber teeth weren't mammals at all. Around 260 million years ago, long before the dinosaurs, Permian synapsids called Gorgonopsians had their own blade-like canines. This was just a classic case of convergent evolution. Nature just keeps on reinventing the blade. And it works. Until it doesn't. But more on that later. But back to our actual saber-toothed cats, whose teeth were only a part of their perfectly menacing design. Sorry, can't help myself. Saber cats were a whole anatomical package. A skull built for an extreme gape, enlarged neck muscles, and massive forelimbs for grappling. Their iconic move was to surprise and overpower their prey and then kill it with their sabers. They were basically the living versions of your favorite slasher film villains. Now, despite this charming description and the reputation, saber cats were not actual bone crushers. They were soft tissue specialists, built for precision, like brain surgeons. It's kind of like why you wouldn't use a chef's knife on bones. Another early saber cat was Paramachirotis. Compared to Myomachirotis, these were larger and slightly more specialized saber-tooths, and had longer, blade-like teeth and could open their mouth even wider. All of that combined to make them better at hunting prey like Hipparion, early horses that could be up to 300 kilograms, or 600 pounds. These cats only weighed about half of that, but thumb-sized daggers were big enough to take the horsies down. Surprisingly, their teeth were actually quite fragile. They were strong from the downward strike kind of way, but were pretty vulnerable from lateral stress. That meant that they had to control their prey first, or risk snapping a tooth. And here's another surprising fact. Despite their enormous fangs, saber-toothed cats actually had a weaker bite than modern lions. And it makes sense. It takes a lot less force to stab a lime with a knife than to squeeze it dry with your bare hands. Now, imagine the lime is a deer's throat. In Pokemon terms, the next evolution of the saber-tooth appeared in Africa and Eurasia roughly 12 million years ago. This was Machairodus, the first truly gigantic saber-tooths. Paramachairodus was about the size of a leopard. No slouch by any means, but Machairodus was bigger than a lion. Its teeth were serrated and about the size of a chef's knife. For a while, Machairodus was the king of cats, and few animals dared to challenge it. Besides possibly bear dogs, but those are a subject for another episode. Meanwhile, in the plains of North America, the Nimravides species hunted camels and three-toed horses. See, I wasn't joking when I said Miocene herbivores were funky looking. They look like 5th-generation Pokemon when the designers were starting to run out of ideas. Nimravides was interesting because although its head was obviously that of a saber-toothed cat, the rest of its body resembled more of a generalist cat. Later saber-tooths, like Megantherion, Homotherium, and finally Smilodon, would transition from hind-leg-powered cats to front-leg-powered beasts. Their teeth were precision instruments, but they still needed to jump onto prey and hold on for dear life until they delivered the coup de grace. In some ways, their bodies were slightly more bear-like, with large and thick front limbs. This was a strategy that worked for millions of years, until the large prey they used their forearms to hold on to was killed by climate change and hairless primates. If you've ever wondered if saber-toothed cats could survive today, the answer is mostly no. But Nimravides would have been one of the most likely candidates to thrive today. By the mid-Miocene, saber-toothed cats expanded widely into a huge range of ecosystems. Gone were the days where they were exclusive savanna giant killers. By this point, not even open forests were safe for large ungulates. Of course, hunting in the forest required different adaptations than grassland stalking, so two distinct branches appeared, the dirk-tooths and the scimitar-tooths. I know, it's a lot of knives to memorize, but it'll all make sense once you see how they use them. In the savannas, where chasing prey is a necessity and being fast is non-negotiable, saber-tooths with serrated teeth ruled. These were the scimitar-tooths. Stabbing at high speeds was dangerous and imprecise, so their teeth became steak knives to slash through flesh. Our old friend Nimravides was an earlier version of this, but Amphimachairodus was a leap forwards on scimitar tooth technology. At this point, if you stood in the middle of the savannah, you might have seen an Amphimachairodus easily take down an upright ape. And across the world, in geographically isolated areas, new saber-tooths were eating all sorts of new prey. That's because isolation breeds new species. When oceans fall back, cats walk where water once stood. Water returns. Speciation. I made that fang coup just for you. You're welcome. The other main branch belonged to the dirk-toothed cats. These cats took the bear body shape to the next level, as they specialized in ambushing prey in more closed environments, like open woodlands. They couldn't sprint as fast as the scimitar-toothed cats, but they were absolutely swole and could pin down prey before delivering bites with their shank-like teeth. Dirks are stabbing daggers, so it makes sense. You can think of these cats as stabbers and scimitar-toothed cats as slashers. If the scientists who named these cats weren't such nerds, they would have called them shank-tooth and machete-tooth. but that's an argument we can no longer win. Promegaantherion was the main dirk tooth during this period, but it was still an early stage of the dirk tooth evolution. At the same time, in Eurasia, saber cats with smaller teeth that didn't fit in with the dirk tooths or scimitar tooths appeared. In Eurasia, Yoshi and Adelphi luris lived a more generalist lifestyle. Not much is known about them, and some researchers don't even consider them saber-tooths. But hey, we promised we'd mention all these species. All we really know about them is that for saber-toothed cats, their teeth were kind of small, but they did thrive for several million years. Around 8 million years ago, a new kind of cat split off from the non-saber-toothed cat lineage. This was Panthera, the lineage that would eventually lead to lions, jaguars, tigers, and leopards. We know this split happened around 8 million years ago thanks to DNA analysis, but the oldest fossil we have is Panthera blythei from the Himalayas, which lived about 6 million years ago. This cat already had most of the features that all big cats still have today. Around the same time, the small cat lineage appeared. These tiny hunters specialized in rodents, birds, and other small animals. They also evolved the ability to make their hyoid vibrate. This was the first time that you could officially make a kitty purr. Not all small cats are small. The cougar is technically part of this branch of the cat family. They actually have their own branch within the small cat branch, along with the improperly named jaguarundi and the fastest cat on Earth, the cheetah. But we have a special guest who loves these cats and is here to tell us all about them. Ladies and gentlemen, Lindsay Nicole.
We don't have fossils of the ancestral species of this lineage, but we know it was a medium-sized cougar-like cat. From that one ancestor, pumas went thick, bulky, built for power. Jaguarundis went freak mode. And a third cat went more towards speed. Yeah, the cheetah. Everything about them is built for speed. Long limbs, a lightweight frame, a spine so flexible it acts like a coiled spring, and massive nasal passages to flood its lungs with oxygen. Semi-retractable claws to grip, a rudder-like tail to maneuver and turn. Every single adaptation points to the same goal, catching the fastest prey on Earth. The earliest member of the group, Acinonyx aicha, showed up in Africa and Eurasia looking like something halfway between a cougar and a cheetah, still figuring out the whole thing. But it wasn't long before the giant cheetah appeared, and this creature meant business. Twice the size of any cheetah alive today. It was taking down horses, young bison, and large deer. A sprinter, built like a tank. Over time, though, competition with other big cats forced the lineage to specialize. Acinonyx pleistocynicus and Acinonyx intermedius gradually got smaller, squeezed into the fast prey niche, because it turns out, moving a massive body at those speeds is just brutally expensive energy-wise. By around 2 million years ago, the modern cheetah had emerged and spread across the grasslands of Africa and Asia. Weirdly, on the other side of the world, a separate group had split off from cougars and was independently evolving the exact same solution. The North American cheetahs, genus Miracinonyx, were doing their own thing, and their likely prey was the pronghorn. That relationship gave North America some of the fastest predator-prey chases the continent has ever seen, that we know of, hitting speeds up to 100 kilometers per hour, or about 60 miles per hour. The first humans to arrive in North America ran into these cheetahs constantly, competing for the same kills, chasing them off their hunts. But eventually the Ice Age ended, the glaciers pulled back, and the grasslands the cheetahs depended on started shrinking. The last American cheetah made its final hunt somewhere on the Great Plains around 12,000 years ago. Today there's only one species left, Acinonyx jubatus, holding on across Africa and in a small, critically endangered population in Iran. They and their prey, gazelles and impalas, are a living snapshot of one of evolution's most intense arms races. And we should do everything we can to make sure they have a better outcome than their American cousins. Thanks for having me. Back to you.
Lindsay wrote a whole book about the history of life on Earth, but we'll let her tell you about it.
It's called Epic Earth. It tells the story of how life evolved over billions of years. I wanted to show you what the inside looks like because the illustrations are sick. These, then boom. Table of contents, boom. Sick. Boom. Check it out. Boom. Boom. Tons of cool illustrations to go along with all the ways life evolved. We've got specific species, strange specimens, etc. Book to go about how life evolved over billions of years. Check out my book. I'm very proud of it, and it's out now. That's it. Thanks.
You can get it by clicking on the link in the description. Thanks, Lindsay. The other two species in this lineage could hardly be more different. The puma is a large hunter that can even take down llamas. They're kind of an ersatz big cat, but unlike lions and tigers, they can't roar. But unlike many small cats, they also can't purr. So what fearsome noise do they make? They meow. They're incredibly adaptable and live in diverse habitats from Alaska to Patagonia. The jaguarundi is a long and slender cat that hunts in dense vegetation and is very active during the day. It's kind of a throwback to early cats. You could call them neoclassical cats, as they might be the closest living analog to Proilurus, or a tiny version of the Pseudilurus. Back to the saber-toothed cats. One of the greatest scimitar-toothed genera appeared around 4 million years ago. Its name was Homotherium. Some scientists describe them as a dog-like cat, which is probably pretty offensive to these cats. They had long legs and a leaner-built frame compared to the stockier saber-tooths we often think of. This suggests they were probably better suited to covering distance in open terrain. Some researchers have suggested that they hunted in packs. They spread widely across Eurasia, Africa, and North America and survived until about 12,000 years ago, which means that humans lived in their lands and died in their jaws. We all likely have a great-great-great-great-grandpa who died by the blade of a scimitar-toothed cat. By the Pliocene, saber-tooths weren't just widespread, they were specialized. Dinofelis, a saber cat that didn't fit in with the dirks or the scimitars, roamed Africa, Eurasia, and North America. Like Homotherium, some fossil sites suggest that Dinofelis might have hunted early hominins. Some hominin skulls show puncture marks where spacing matches dino canines. Yep, these guys could turn your head into a bowling ball. Around this time as well, the small cats were radiating. And we don't just mean that they looked gorgeous, because they did, but also that the new branches were splitting off this family tree and creating loads of new species. Many of them are still alive today, but we'll talk about them in depth a little later. The saber-toothed cat reached its platonic ideal around 2 million years ago. Its name alone could turn the smiles of our ancestors upside down. Its name was Smilodon. If you grew up watching Ice Age, this is Diego. He's my little Smilodon. There were 3 species. One, Smilodon fatalis, which literally means deadly knife tooth. The others were the Smilodon populator, or knife tooth the destroyer, and Smilodon gracilis, or the slender knife tooth. Real Diego was roughly lion-sized and bear-shaped. They were so weird that some paleontologists have misidentified their fossils as belonging to bears and hyenas. They had a bobtail that indicated it didn't chase like a lion, but rather ambushed its weird-looking prey. Sorry I keep roasting them, but come on, just look at this guy. Here's the rundown. Forelimbs like a heavyweight grappler, massive chest, stout back legs, and neck muscles much bigger than a modern cat's. Their thumbs sported grappling hooks, and their canines reached nearly 30 centimeters. That's longer than an average human foot. Imagine 2 of your feet growing from your gums. Ew. Smilodon populator had the longest fangs of any saber-tooth ever. Imagine encountering that as a human trying to make it in the open pampas of Ice Age South America. And here's another surprise. Those iconic fangs were likely covered by fleshy lips when their mouth was closed. So it probably didn't walk around permanently mid-snarl. There's something cool about having the longest blades ever and keeping them tucked away like you've got nothing to prove. Saber-toothed kittens were born with small milk canines. Their famous blades took years to fully erupt. For a while, they had unique double fangs, baby teeth that sat beside developing, fragile adult sabers. I can't decide if I would have been more or less cool in my awkward teenage years if I had double fangs. In adulthood, they could open their mouths an amazing 120 degrees. For reference, a lion can only open their mouths at about 65 degrees. Hey, listen, I'm not saying that's not impressive. Pretty amazing. I ain't lying. Get it? At the La Brea tar pits in California, paleontologists have dug up thousands of Smilodon fossils. Many show healed, broken bones that would likely have been fatal for a solitary predator. Yet they healed, which suggests possible cooperative behavior, maybe social groups. La Brea tar pits tells a brutal story. Struggling megafauna trapped in asphalt drew in predators again and again, who then became trapped themselves. A prehistoric domino effect. Smilodon is one of the most common large carnivores found there. The golden age of saber-tooths and big cats started around 1 million years ago. In North America, Smilodon fatalis was the apex predator of the forest. In the prairies, the American lion, one of the largest lions ever, preyed on bison. And in some southern forests, the American jaguar pounced on its prey with incredible strength. In South America, Smilodon populator, possibly the largest saber-tooth ever, stalked the woodlands, and Homotherium cerums, a massive scimitar tooth, thrived patrolling the plains. In the south, humongous Patagonian panthers, another jaguar species, were well adapted to the rocky terrain of the southern Andes. Their prey included giants like the ground sloths. In Eurasia, the incorrectly named cave lion was one of the apex predators of mammoth steppes and made their living hunting reindeer and other large ungulates. In the forests, the European jaguar made a killing under the evergreen trees of the continent. And in between, in rocky crops or forest edges, the European leopard hunted with its iconic climbing and dive-bombing ability. This terrifyingly awesome age of big cats came to an abrupt end because the world changed again. The ecosystems that helped them thrive were disappearing, and competition with the greatest predator was not survivable. Saber-tooths had survived climate swings before. They had crossed continents, adapted to new prey, outlasted competitors. But around 12,000 years ago, change accelerated. Subtle shifts in Earth's orbit increased northern sunlight, pushing the planet out of its last ice age. Glaciers retreated rapidly, and vegetation patterns shifted. Humans spread widely and were very effective hunters. Yes, the same humans like you and me who survive on delivery and YouTube videos. Large megafauna like mammoths and giant ground sloths declined quickly. Saber-tooths were specialists. Their anatomy was tuned for large-bodied prey. When that prey vanished, the blade didn't have much left to cut. And they weren't alone. The European cave lion, the American lion, the American cheetah, not true cheetahs, but fast-running relatives, they all disappeared. That's part of why the pronghorn is still absurdly fast today. It evolved to outrun a predator that no longer exists, like they're still running from evolutionary ghosts. But saber-toothed cats have no real descendants or relatives surviving today. This is a phenomenon known as macroevolution ratchet. Lineages tend to push towards increasing specialization, which has advantages in stable environments, but become a liability when ecosystems shift rapidly. We're not saying that they failed because their teeth were flawed. They were around for 20 million years. That's 10 times longer than the genus Homo has existed. And with that, one of the most iconic predator designs in mammalian history vanished. For the first time in millions and millions of years, no saber-toothed cat roamed the earth. The closest thing we have today are the oversized canines of clouded leopards and the strange saber-like teeth of musk deer. But no creature in history has carried the saber-tooth the way that Smilodon did. Sometimes that's just the way the catnip crumbles. Today, we have over 40 living species in just 12 genera. Let's see who they are and how they adapted to survive. First, the big cats. The largest of the big cats is the true king of the jungle, the tiger, with some individuals reaching 300 kilograms or about 600 pounds. These are still monumental beasts. Their stripes hide them in the jungles while they ambush their prey. But their numbers are the opposite of that. In 2010, there were as few as 3,000 tigers in the whole world. That means you'd need 7 times the global population to fill out a hockey arena. Thankfully, the numbers have recovered thanks to amazing conservation work by groups like Panthera. So we asked our friend Dr. Wai Ming to tell us about saving this amazing cat.
My name is Wai-Ming Wong. I am the director of Panthera's Small Cat Conservation Science. So I think overall we're doing quite well in tiger conservation. Numbers are up. I remember growing up as a kid, the numbers kind of always were around the 3,000 mark, and now they're kind of up to kind of the 4,200 mark, which is really fantastic. That's a fairly significant increase in global tiger populations. A lot of that increase has been on the Indian subcontinent, where there has been significant conservation initiatives aimed at tigers.
A 33% increase in population is massive, but the work continues.
There are still a lot of challenges within tiger conservation, right? Habitat fragmentation, degradation, prey depletion, as well as poaching of tigers and their prey, as well as agricultural expansion and infrastructure expansion, and maintaining political will over very large landscapes. In some places, trafficking remains a major threat, and in others, the issue is whether tiger habitat stays connected enough for populations to kind of remain viable. And as populations recover in some landscapes, conflict with people can also increase if it isn't proactively managed. But the encouraging part is that we know tiger recovery is possible.
These learnings will help us protect the other big cats. The most iconic of them is probably the lion. Being a social cat is actually pretty unique. This helps them catch large prey despite not being as huge as saber-tooths. Pride or die, baby! Leopards overlap with lions and specialize in prey that might be too small for lions to chase. When they do catch something, they have to eat it quickly or risk having its food stolen by lions, hyenas, and painted dogs. So they have learned to climb up a tree and have their meals while taking in the view. In the Americas, the jaguar occupies a similar niche to leopards. Some of their common prey are caimans and other aquatic animals, so they have to kill them quickly. To do that, they have evolved the strongest bite relative to size of all big cats, and have learned to crush its prey's skull for a quick kill. And in the mountains of Asia, snow leopards, with their rock-climbing skills and leaping prowess, have become specialists at eating other rock climbers, like sheep and ibex. There are also 2 kind of honorary big cats, the clouded leopard and the Sunda clouded leopard. These 2 species, similar but separated by geography, can't roar like big cats, but can't purr either. Their skulls are more saber-toothy than any other living cat, and they climb so well that they can even walk down a tree head down. Any small or medium-sized arboreal animal in Southeast Asia is afraid of these guys. Big cats are probably the most well-known felines, aside from the house cat. But the small cat world is fascinating and a lot more diverse. Let's see how these tiny cats took over the world! And my heart. One of the first lineages to split off is possibly the most mysterious of all the small cat clans, the Bay Cat lineage. If you've never heard of Bay Cats or their cousins, the Asian golden cat and the marbled cat, you're not alone. Very few people have heard of them, and even fewer have seen them. They're Southeast Asian cats. Marbled cats live in trees, and they're found from Nepal to Borneo. They're amazing climbers and have long tails for balance. they're kinda like squirrel cats. Bay cats and Asian golden cats are more generalist forest floor cats. They were once a single species, but they diverged when the land bridge between Borneo and continental Asia disappeared. Now, bay cats are endemic to Borneo, and golden cats have a wide but patchy distribution in the rest of Southeast Asia and China. Also in Asia, but with much smaller species, we have the Rarest genus. The most common of them is the outrageously adorable leopard cat. They're generalists and are slightly tinier than a domestic cat. You can find them across Asia, from Afghanistan and India to North Korea and Malaysia. Then we get the weirdos. The fishing cat lives exclusively in wetlands and actively jumps in the water to catch prey. They're officially the wettest cat in the world. Then we have the flat-headed cat, from lowland forests near wetlands. These cats also fish, but instead of diving to hunt, they catch prey from the shore, like shorebirds. And finally, we have the rusty spotted cat, one of the smallest cats in the world and a specialist in the dry forest habitats of India and Sri Lanka. The closest relative to this genus is the Pallas cat from the rocky grasslands of Asia. This cat is the OG grumpy cat. It has some of the classic cold weather features, like a small tail and ears, because in the tundra, everything devolves to orb. And it also has round pupils, which gives them that iconic hyper-expressive look, like they're always slightly disappointed in you. Meanwhile, in Africa, the small cats were diversifying as well. The most statuesque of these new lineages was the caracal branch of the family. These cats have long legs and an elegant, borderline pretentious gait. I know I'm anthropomorphizing these cats, but they look kinda rich? I don't know. Anyways, I digress. Caracals are good jumpers and can even catch birds out of the air. Servals are even better and have a fox-like hunting technique where they pounce on rodents and other small prey. It's a useful technique in the tall grasslands where prey are hard to find and harder to follow. And finally, the golden cat is a more generalist cat. They had left the savanna and adapted to life in the jungle. Because of this, we know very little about it. But look at it! It's absolutely stunning. Meanwhile, in South America, with its wide variety of habitats, small cats were exploding. The genus Leopardus went wild and made hunters for every small prey. The largest of them is the ocelot, a mid-sized rainforest species that hunts mostly on the ground. If you're a small mammal running away from an ocelot, you might think that going up into a tree would be a way to save yourself. But unfortunately, in the canopy, the margay, the most arboreal of the South American cats, would be waiting to snatch you up. They're known to eat birds and monkeys. In areas without ocelots, the oncillas rule. They're basically pocket ocelots that can live in areas with less tree cover, like mountain forests, that can support smaller prey species. A subspecies of oncilla, the southern tigrina, has recently been proven to be a separate species and lives in the forests of southern Brazil and the Pantanal. In the colder rainforests of Chile, codcods appeared. They're small and have a thick coat that protects them from the cool temperatures of the southern part of the continent. In the less covered areas, multiple cats compete for the available prey. The Jeffries cat is the most flexible of them and thrives in open lands and the river forests in the grasslands. The Pampas cat is more of a grassland specialist and uses the cover of tall grass to sneak up on prey and pounce when they least expect it. And lastly, the Andean cat, using similar techniques as its grassland-dwelling cousin, takes up to the rocky hilltops of the Andes to catch vizcachas. This is one of the most specialized cat species on Earth, and lives in environments few predators could survive in. Using a similar pouncing style, but better adapted to colder weather, is the lynx lineage. Their long legs and wide pads are adaptations for walking in rough terrain, like snowshoes. Their tiny tail prevents heat loss, and their large ears give them directional hearing. The Canada lynx is the most specialized of them. Its coat and clown-like feet help them traverse the snow and catch snowshoe hares. Across the pond, the Eurasian lynx makes up for its lack of extreme cold adaptations by being a bit bigger and adapting to boreal forests. The Iberian lynx is the Mediterranean version of the Eurasian lynx, and it is adapted to life in warmer weather, catching European rabbits with great skill anywhere they go. In North America, the bobcat is the most generalist of lynxes. It lives in pretty much any ecosystem in the continent except tundras. If you're watching this from North America, you're likely not too far from a bobcat. And finally, the wildcat lineage. These are super adaptable small cats that can live in huge swaths of the earth. In Asia and some parts of Africa, the jungle cat is a specialist in wetlands and tall grass. In southern Africa, the black-footed cat hunts under the cover of darkness and is the most ruthlessly efficient cat in the world, often catching over 10 different prey in a single night. Up in the Tibetan Plateau, the Chinese mountain cat specializes in cooler weather living and pika hunting. In the areas of the Sahara and other deserts, the sand cat survives by requiring very little water, being the color of sand, and having fur on its paws to protect them from the scorching temperatures. And finally, the European wildcat and the African wildcat are closely related and can be found across the forests, scrubs, and grasslands of the two continents as well as most of Asia. African cats were the ones who got domesticated to give rise to our beloved domestic cats. But unlike domestic cats, many small cats live in very specific ecosystems, and their numbers have been affected by human activity. Dr. Wong has some insight on the work being done to save them.
That's a great question. There's been huge progress over the past 10 to 20 years, but within wildcat conservation, it's still very much uneven. Many years ago, a colleague of mine, a guy called Jim Sanderson, anyone in small cat conservation knows of Jim Sanderson. He's a small cat champion. He did a very famous but very simple calculation, and he looked at all of the available funding that goes into wildcat conservation. And he calculated that less than 1% of all available funding went to the 33 small wildcats.
And the main reason for this is that many people simply don't know enough about small cats to care about them. But one thing I can assure you, to know them is to love them.
One of the points that I want to emphasize with small cats is that they're just really cool, right? They have really cool adaptations. As we discussed, many have habitat specialists. They live in these wetlands or dense rainforests. And so with that there's been some adaptations, right? We have the arboreal specialists, margays, clouded leopards, marble cats, they have all these kind of adaptations with rotating wrists that allow them to run down trees head first, hang upside down on branches, some really cool stuff. The black-footed cat, for example, in South Africa, the smallest cat in Africa, but perhaps the most deadliest. It has a 70% kill rate, very, very successful. I want to emphasize and illustrate that many of these small cats are just as charismatic as the big ones, but also very ecologically important. Kind of bringing it back to the point where it's really important to kind of look at this kind of that middle approach, those small cats, the medium-sized carnivores as global indicators of change, particularly in a rapidly changing world with degrading environments and that sort of stuff. The small cats will certainly kind of provide us with a really good indicator of how things are doing in the future. So a super important group of species to be studying.
I couldn't agree more. Let's all continue learning about these amazing cats and get more involved in their conservation. And if you can, support organizations like Panthera, who are trying tirelessly to protect all living cats. A cat that loves to get wet and fish in a swamp. It sounds a bit weird considering everything we know about cats, but everything about this cat is weird. Its shape has been compared to that of an otter, and its behavior to that of a raccoon. We should be all over this guy. And yet, in some parts of its range, it's just been rediscovered for the first time in 30 years. And in others, it's only seen a couple of times a year. Who is this mysterious someone? This is the flat-headed cat. We have great news! For the first time in 30 years, flat-headed cats have been spotted in Thailand. This is one of the rarest and strangest cats in the world, so let's meet this little weirdo to understand all the hullabaloo. Flat-headed cats, which are very different from flat-faced cats, are part of the Asian small cat genus Rarest, which means serrated teeth. All the members of this genus specialize in small prey and use their steak knife teeth to shear it. Flat-headed cats' closest relatives are the rusty spotted cat and the fishing cat, which we have talked about already on this show. But while the fishing cat lives in the mangroves and deeper wetlands of South and Southeast Asia, the flat-headed cat is even more of a specialist and can only live in the shallower waters of peat swamp forests. It's such a specific habitat that the only places to find them are some forests in the Malay Peninsula, Borneo, and Sumatra. One of the coolest things about fishing cats and flat-headed cats is that they love water and the food that lives in it, but they have gone in slightly different evolutionary paths. The fishing cat is a thick and powerful cat that can swim and catch prey while swimming. But the flat-headed cat has adapted to fish from the shore, kinda like an egret or weird guys in a dating app. So if they were D&D characters, the fishing cat would obviously be a fighter, and the flat-headed cat would be a rogue. Who wants to play D&D but we're all tabaxi? Flat-headed cats are tiny. They weigh about a quarter of your average house cat. Their body is pretty much as long as your pet's, but since they're more seafood guys than rodent guys, they don't need to jump and pounce. So their tail has shrunken to a little stub no longer than your cell phone. Since they fish from the shore rather than in the water, they have a combination of hunting adaptations that make them kinda otter-like, or even raccoony. It's hard to imagine a trash panda or swamp panda cat, but they have all the tools they need to hunt, take the fish out of the water, and eat it quickly on dry land. Just like Gollum. To fish, these raccoon-like cats have forward-facing fangs, so they can hold on to large prey in their mouth without having to dislocate their jaws like a snake. Then, the teeth are pointy enough to secure the prey so that the cat can carry it away. Their funny little heads, which give them a name that sounds like a weirdly specific name given to you by a toddler, are actually perfectly adapted to dive into the water at great speeds. They're hydrodynamic, like a shorebird's head. Their feet are webbed so they can navigate the peat swamps of Southeast Asia. They also use them to wash their prey, like a raccoon would. And their short legs give them a literal low profile, so they can sneak up to prey and away from predators. They're actually so tiny that an average adult weighs as much as a chihuahua. Yep, they have predators. As weird as it sounds for wildcats to be hunted, for larger predators, they're just a different flavored snack. A very sinewy snack. Civets, leopards, crocodilians, and possibly even snakes and dholes will take a flat-headed cat given the opportunity. That's because their habitats are full of life and support a great number of species. It's very idyllic, but that also means that people keep moving deeper and deeper into their domains. Their swamps are now very fragmented, and in some parts, the water is contaminated by farm and factory runoff. A quick glance at their estimated range shows the level of fragmentation that has led them to become an endangered species. Okay, all of this was just a basic introduction to the flat-headed cat, things you might know from asking locals or observing their body. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. First of all, why weren't they seen in Thailand for 30 years? The southern tip of Thailand is in the Malay Peninsula. This is an area that historically has had lots of sightings of flat-headed cats. But over the past few decades, political instability, low research funding, and difficult access to the swamps has made it pretty much impossible to study these cats in the wild. But over the past few years, local researchers from the Department of National Parks, Wildlife and Plant Conservation, and supported by the conservation NGO Panthera, were able to enter the Princess Sirindorn Wildlife Sanctuary and set up trap cams to see if the cats were there. We got the opportunity to chat with one of the researchers to tell us how this was done and what it means for flat-headed cat conservation.
I'm Dr. Ratapan Patana Rangsan. I'm a conservation program manager for Panthera Thailand.
Off-screen, he told us that instead of trying and failing to pronounce his name correctly, we could just call him Dr. Tom. He started out at Panthera working on tiger population research. But since the rediscovery of the flat-headed cat in Thailand, his work has focused on this small cat. He knows so much about these cats, and we just had too many questions to ask him. For example, what was the forest like? What's it like doing research in a swamp? And how do you even get there?
Yes, because the type of the forest is the peat swamp that is very difficult to access. For example, in the flatland, like in the normal forest, the ranger can walk about 20 kilo per day. But in the peat swamp forest, they can walk only 1 or 2 kilo. Like you have to go down into the water, like chest deep, and maybe walk and climb up some tree and then walk.
So what was the result of the studies? And what was the most surprising thing about finding flat-headed cats there?
When compared with other study with Panthera Malaysia and Panthera Indonesia that they also study with the flat-headed cat, what amazed us is that the concentration of the cat in the area. Like in Malaysia and Indonesia, they have conducted study for 10 years and the detection rate is low. Detection per effort is low. They have been deploying camera for 10 years. They got about 50 detections, but 2 years we got about almost 30 detections.
That's amazing. What are the next steps? And what would you like to find out next?
Right now we can only expand a little bit of the area to detect them, which part of the forest that they disperse. What we want to do, the next step, we want to really go, we call quick study. So we need to go into every part of the forest. We put the grid on the forest and we need to explore every grid. And that's very difficult because the width of the forest is something of 20 or 40 kilo, but that means 40 days to walk because inaccessible type of forest. And if funding allows, we want to color them to understand more about their ecology, because if you look in the publication, there are only about 30 publications on this species, and half of them are record of finding, not deeper understanding of their life, their biology, or what else. This is very rare cat.
Thank you, Dr. Tom, and thank you, Panthera, for supporting research on this mysterious kitty cat. As he mentioned, there are very few studies on these cats. Scientists need to do a lot with very little. So let's dig into what those studies have found out. Research at the Songkla Zoo has given us some insight into the day-to-day rhythms of the flat-headed cat's life, or as they call it, their time budgets. Both males and females ate and were more active at dusk and dawn. Males spent more of their day resting, but females hung out with other cats a little bit more than males. Females in general were more social than the males and slept less. Overall, they were found to have similar time budgets to other members of their genus. This might seem like not a big deal, but the fact is that nobody had ever measured this. Making sure that our assumptions are correct is a necessary part of science. This information helps us build better research methods and gives us extra insight on where and when to find them. We know for sure now that the best time to see them is at night. Another thing we knew about them but is getting a bit of nuance is their need to live close to water. We're now beginning to understand ways in which farmers and flat-headed cats can coexist. The main threat to flat-headed cats is habitat degradation and destruction. The palm oil industry has caused the destruction of virgin forests in the region. Almost half of the plantations are in places that used to be forests. But almost all of the usable land is already being used for plantations. And small-scale farms at the edges of the swamp can support flat-headed cat populations.
We think we have our hope because even though people occupy the land like oil palm plantation, the habitat is about the same to plant the palm tree. They have the mold, the wet mold, and that the fish out there. If the landlord agree, they can plant some thicket for the cat to hide in the wet mold if they have fish. It is possible that we can share. This is our goal, that animal and people can coexist. Because we have a lot of oil palm plantation that have mixed habitat like that, if the cat can adapt to that environment and the owner agree to protect them in their land because they have big plot of land, we can expand the population. We can recover the population not only in the forest but in the plantation that is coexisting. This is our ultimate goal.
Thank you again, Dr. Tom. As Dr. Tom and his colleagues continue their research, we'll keep you up to date. Who knows what amazing new discoveries they'll make. More expansive trap cam studies will help us see what their true range really is. Radio tracking will help us understand where, when, and how they move. A combination of these two technologies might also help us see how they interact with each other and what their mating looks like. And studies on overfishing, water pollution, and diseases will teach us about their threats and hopefully the best way to deal with them. There's still so much to learn about this strange little guy, but the more we understand about its behavior and protect its habitat, the more we will learn about it. Our knowledge of these animals grows exponentially with additional, focused research. So if you can, support conservation organizations like Panthera, who are working to fund research and protect cats all over the world. She swallows it whole and runs off into the night. While their big ears help make them deadly predators, they have another use: listening for other sandcats. These felines live at very low densities, and between two potential mates may be dozens of kilometers of harsh terrain. They'll call out, making a sound resembling a bark. If they're lucky enough to find a partner and succeed in mating, mothers will usually have a litter of 3 kittens. The kittens grow fast, reaching 3/4 of their adult size in just 6 months. In a year, they'll be independent. Like all small cats, sandcats are incredibly elusive, and we know very little about them. Their populations are spread out in remote areas with harsh environments. And so, studying them is almost impossible. Fortunately, for the same reasons that they are hard to study, they're also protected from poaching and human encroachment. In fact, until the 1970s, we knew almost nothing about these desert-dwelling felines. And we still have so much more to learn. But thanks to a handful of dedicated researchers working with limited resources and new technologies like GPS trackers and trap cams, we're starting to shed light on one of the world's most unknown species, The elusive sand cat. The Sri Lankan mangroves. Serving as a natural barrier for the coast, life here is a challenge. With human encroachment, pollution, and climate change decimating the mangroves, life for animals here becomes more of a question with every passing day. Yet, there's one creature in this swamp that is defying the odds and our expectations at the same time. The fishing cat. In the water is probably the last place you'd expect to find your house cat. Yet, in the water is where this small cat, the fishing cat, dominates. With too much competition from predators on land, fishing cats were forced to explore a new niche in order to survive. They turned to the swamp. In order to conquer this new biome, fishing cats had to develop a whole series of adaptations. In the world of small cats, fishing cats are fairly large. Their larger size allows them to wrestle large fish out of the water. These stocky cats have short legs, deep chests, and most unlike other felines, they have short, stubby tails. Spending most of their time hunting in the water, these cats don't need long, graceful tails to help them balance. These swamp things are the world's only felines who specialize in fish. Other cats may eat a fish here and there, but fishing cats got their name for a reason. In a very unfeline-like fashion, fishing cats dive face first into the water to ambush their prey. They'll wait by the water's edge, sitting perfectly still until they see a fish. This fishing cat has spotted one trapped in the shallows. She approaches silently. The fish is struggling, but it can't get out of the shallows. The cat pounces. But meals aren't usually so easy. This fishing cat will need to go a bit deeper. On the lookout for another fish, the cat waits. She spots a fish swimming along the bottom of the mangrove. She dives, sliding through the water with ease. Her head is long, narrow, and very hydrodynamic. She's built to dive. She catches the fish unaware and surfaces. Underwater, no one can hear you meow. They spend so much time of their lives in the water that they have adapted to swim quite well. Their toes on their front feet have partial webbing, which helps them propel themselves through the water. While fishing cats specialize in fish, they will hunt anything near the water. In this case, a duck. These swamp dwellers maintain large territories in pockets throughout Southeast Asia, occasionally overlapping with other fishing cats. They live solitary lives, only meeting to mate. Females will usually have a litter of 2 or 3 kittens, which are born extremely dependent on their mother. They develop quickly, and at just 1 month of age, they'll make their first jump into the water. Though their days of diving may be limited, endangered, the fishing cat faces an uphill battle. The wetlands are disappearing. 35% of mangroves on the planet have dried up. Their habitat is being cleared to make way for agriculture and human infrastructure. Damming limits the flow of fresh water to the mangroves, increasing their salt content and killing the vegetation. Climate change has led to rising sea levels, which can decimate these coastal barriers. And poachers often trap fishing cats to sell them into the exotic pet trade for their skins and as retribution by fishermen for stealing fish out of their nets. But this cat was lucky enough to make it out alive, though not entirely unscathed. Conservation efforts for the fishing cat are difficult. These mysterious cats of the swamp are incredibly elusive and near impossible to find in the wild. Because of this, many people don't even know what they are. But there are people making a difference. The Fishing Cat Conservancy are educating children in India and Sri Lanka about the fishing cat, in hopes that they will come to love and respect them. They also provide local fishermen with tools, like crab boxes, so they can make a living out of the mangroves without having to cut them down. Fishing cats are just one resident in a biome that is disappearing around the world, and without help from people like you and me, the days for the mysterious fishing cat may be numbered. The Andean cat is the rarest and most endangered cat in the world. It lives at the top of fragmented mountain ranges and has a very selective diet. Very few people have ever seen it. Its coat blends in with the rocks. Its long tail and legs help it navigate the rocks with perfect stealth. And it prefers to move under the cover of darkness. It's practically an invisible cat. And as the climate changes, its habitat is disappearing and its prey is going away. Thankfully, there's a group of researchers working day and night to protect it, using technology to see what the human eye can't see. This is the Andean cat's battle for survival. Today, we're looking for an Andean cat in the immensity of the Andes. With fewer than 2,000 living individuals, this is the rarest cat in the world, and it lives in some of the most remote and vast places on Earth. Many of the top researchers working on this cat have never seen one alive, despite spending years in the mountains. Finding an Andean cat in the Andes is like finding a needle in a haystack. But even though running into this cat is almost impossible, every day we're learning more about them. Across South America, researchers are getting creative and using all the technological tools at their disposal to understand this cat without having to interact with it directly. We're going to meet two of them to see what we're still learning about Andean cats. But let's start with what we already know for sure. First of all, what is an Andean cat? Andean cats are a South American small cat from the genus Leopardus. Despite their name, they don't have anything to do with the Old World leopards. They were just named that because their coat reminded Europeans of African leopards. Some of their closest relatives are the Pampas cat, the margay, and the ocelot. But while their cousins adapted to life in the grasslands and jungles of the continent, the Andean cat became a specialist in one of the toughest environments in the world: the Andean mountaintops, from Peru to Argentina. They mostly live beyond where the trees grow, at altitudes of usually over 3,600 meters. It's a habitat that's disappearing because of climate change. Life in the mountains can be miserable, but Andean cats have adapted to be the sole kings of the Andean hill. Water is hard to come by. There are few prey. And in the winter, temperatures in the higher mountains dip to below -15 degrees Celsius. Their ideal habitat is the steep top of rocky mountains that are not covered by snow year-round. They prefer areas that don't have a lot of vegetation or water because that would allow other predators to move in. The Andean cat's evolutionary strategy wasn't to fight off other predators or to catch prey more efficiently. but to simply live where no other hunter could thrive. Only its closest relative, the pampas cat, can venture into these mountains. But they're not full-time mountain dwellers and can survive in a much wider variety of habitat. This hyperspecialization strategy is now affecting the Andean cat very negatively. But we'll get back to that a little later. We wanted to see where this ninja cat lives and follow one of the top researchers as he looks for evidence of them in the mountains of central Chile. Andres, our South American correspondent, will be checking in from the rocky tops of the Andes. This is Bernardo Segura, a biologist and member of a network of Andean cat researchers called Alianza Gato Andino, which, as you can probably tell, means Andean Cat Alliance. He studies these kitty cats using trap cams. His work has given us some of the greatest footage of Andean cats we've ever seen. Just stunning.
Hey, we're climbing a mountain in the Andes because we're looking for Andean cats. As you can see, it's very steep, it's very tall, it's very beautiful. But if we're lucky, we might see an Andean cat.
Yeah, we're climbing here the mountains in central Chile to see if we find an Andean cat. Probably no, we won't be able to see an Andean cat live because it's almost impossible. They are nocturnal, they are very good for camouflage. But we have plenty of trail cameras here, so we will check some and let's see if we find something interesting.
Bernardo has been researching Andean cats for over 8 years and has still never seen one in the wild. You heard right, even the top experts in the world, in areas where they know Andean cats live, have trouble finding this cat. To survive on their own, these cats have developed a couple of tools. Andean cats are slightly larger than a domestic cat, but their tails and fur are much longer. They're like stretched-out tabbies with the thickest raccoon-like ringed tails you'll ever see. The stripes of the tails are unique to each individual, like a fingerprint, and they help researchers tell them apart. These tails also give them balance as they stealthily run and hunt around their rocky habitats, and their fur protects them from the punishing cold of the mountaintops. Thanks to these features, they can sneak up on prey like ninjas and kill it before they know an Andean ghost is there. But being able to hunt in these habitats is just half of the equation. The other half, the most important half, is its prey. For the Andean cat, one species makes up the vast majority of its diet and is crucial to its survival. Meet the vizcacha. This little cutie, famous for always looking sad, disappointed, and needing a nap, is another mountaintop specialist. Although they look like depressed bunnies, they're actually rodents, closely related to the chinchilla. In colder areas, animals tend to look like orbs. Exposed skin and large extremities make them lose heat very quickly. So the idea is to have as little surface relative to mass as possible. But when your predator is a mountain ninja cat, being able to hear it stalk you is more important than being efficient at staying warm. Without the large ears, they'd be very warm inside the cat's belly. Vizcachas live in colonies, and at the first sign of danger, they communicate using high-pitched calls to alert each other of the presence of an Andean cat. Much like with Andean cats, a lot of what we know about vizcachas and its natural habitat comes from observations on trail cams, like the ones Bernardo uses.
Can you see the trail camera?
The job of a researcher has its pros and cons. The landscapes are beautiful, there's always a chance of seeing something amazing every time you're in the field, and you get to expand humanity's knowledge based on your observations. But it also means going through tons of data, which isn't always what you're looking for. And yet, you can still find amazing things you didn't know you were looking for. Like this vizcacha and this hawk.
Have like 100. There was a rabbit over there. In this area we have like 100 cameras. In other places we have like 50. So we have a lot of trail cameras, and it's really interesting because the trail cameras are like eyes in the field that are working 24/7. So we have a lot of incredible footage of Andean cats, also from condors, from birds, lizards, to other mammals like cougars. So we have so many eyes in the field working 24/7, and I think that is awesome. Like when I'm in my home, I know that I have like 100 cameras working for me in the mountains. That is really, really cool.
The trap cams have taught us about the types of habitats Andean cats like, how they hunt, and how human activity affects them, and just generally what they do when nobody's watching. But one of the most fascinating discoveries about this cat was done by Bernardo in these very hills.
I'm really excited about a place that we have near Santiago. We're studying Andean cats. We have been able to follow the mother with a kitten 2 years in a row. So we're waiting for this year to see if the mother had another kitten. That is really exciting. It has allowed us to see how the mother is raising the kitten, how they are interacting between each other. It's really special to see the kind of bond that this animal have with the kitten, because the mother shares with the kitten for over a year, so they have a really strong bond, and you can just feel it in looking at the videos, because sometimes the kitten goes under the mother, their tails are like touching, and so I think that is the most exciting thing for me.
After a quick break, it was time to go back and check more trap cams. The team hiked and rock climbed and checked all the cameras in the area. They even found an Andean cat paw print. But unfortunately, today wasn't the day Bernardo would see his first Andean cat. And they would also not appear in any of the cameras. But the mountain gave us an amazing consolation prize, a rare observation of a live hunt.
So we stopped here momentarily because we saw a fox on the other mountain across from us. And he was hunting a rabbit, an invasive rabbit. We're really excited to see it hunt, because usually when you see a fox, by the time you see it, it has already seen you.
But this time, we're far enough that it doesn't see us as a threat. With the coast clear, the fox goes to work. It starts with the unmistakable sign of stalking. The fox is walking close to the ground and being as quiet as possible. Just uphill, there's at least one rabbit. The fox makes its way through the bushes. And right as we thought he was about to pounce on the rabbit in the clearing, it changed courses and went for another one hiding in the bushes. A quick bite, a sharp cry, and the fox comes out victorious. A good day for the fox, even though he got a bit spooked by a fluffy cow.
This fox was fully unaware of us. Joe's worried about his food, and we got to see a whole hunting experience. So it's really, really, really exciting to see it. And it's just right there.
This is an amazing scene that shows the resilience and adaptation of Andean predators. Unfortunately for the Andean cat, but fortunately for the ecosystem, European hares don't usually make it to the rocky tops of the mountains. For these cats, there's no replacement for vizcachas. In some areas, the existence of Andean cats is deduced by the density of vizcachas. It's things like these that help us find cats in places nobody has ever seen them before. You could almost say that the vizcacha is to the Andean cat what the snowshoe hare is to the Canada lynx. Before we had trap cams, a lot of what we knew about Andean cats came from indirect sources. In fact, from the 1860s, when the cat was first officially described, most of what we knew about these cats was information passed on from locals, pelts, and scat. But over the past few years, our knowledge of these cats has grown exponentially, thanks to new technologies and a growing network of Andean cat researchers. Besides trap cams, the best way to study Andean cats without actually seeing them is through DNA analysis. Sometimes the only sign of Andean cats is poop. Researchers collect it and send it to a lab to get analyzed by the world's #1 expert in Andean cat genetics in the world. Of course, our friend Andreas went to meet her.
Mi nombre es Constanza Napolitano, soy la coordinadora del programa global de genética de Alianza Católica.
Constanza has a bit of a strange job. She's the person that receives and analyzes cat feces samples. If she gets a positive result, it confirms the presence of Andean cats in that area. Once she gets the sample, she processes it by heating it up and shaking it to make DNA easier to extract. Then, this machine concentrates the DNA. And then the samples are tested to see if they're good enough to get sequenced. After that, the DNA sequence is compared to other Andean cat DNA and other carnivores. If there are positive hits, the population gets added to the list. These DNA tests are giving us an even more accurate view of where the Andean cats live and how their populations shift based on human activities. In some cases, they show us dire pictures of habitat destruction and population collapse. The Andean cat has many problems. The first one is that its ideal habitat is so specific that it makes it inherently patchy, so it's hard for the different populations to connect with each other. This also means that they have very low genetic diversity. The biggest subpopulation has only around 250 Andean cats. As we mentioned earlier, climate change is making the mountains warmer, and cats are having to move higher to stay in their ideal range. Increased agricultural activity and poor water management are also affecting these kitties. But the worst thing that's happening to them is mining.
So the main threat is the habitat loss and habitat degradation. In these places, for example, there's a lot of mining activities. So many times the mining activities are located in the very same places that Andean cat lives. So they have to basically destroy the habitat of the Andean cat, and that is irreplaceable because Andean cat can't live in another area. It's not like the pumas, for example, that can live in these environments, but can also live down there in the valley. The Andean cat doesn't have that possibility. It only lives here, so any habitat destruction is really bad for the Andean cat.
But it's not all lost. All over South America, there are people like Bernardo and Constanza fighting to protect the Andean cat. If you're interested in following their research, you can find a link to their website in the description. If you live near the Andean cat range, get outside and see if you can spot one. You might even get lucky and see one in real life, like our friend Jorge Abarca, one of the few people to have ever ran into an Andean cat in the wild. Alianza Gato Andino is out there every day looking for Andean cats, studying them, fighting for their conservation, and educating the public about this amazing animal. People fight for what they love, and getting the locals to fall in love with the cat is one of the most effective ways of protecting the Andean cat. If you're interested in conservation but don't know where to start, consider getting a trap cam and observing the wildlife in your neighborhood. It'll help you see a whole new world you didn't know was right outside your door. They call it the rusty-spotted cat, but its hunting skills and its claws are razor sharp. Locals might spend their whole lives without seeing one. For many prey across the region, it's the last thing they'll ever see. This is the little Prince of Darkness, the lightest cat in the world, the rusty-spotted cat. The rusty-spotted cat is the smallest cat species in the world. They're so small and graceful that they've been called the hummingbirds of cats. But they're also so rare and beautiful that you could call them the fairies of the feline world. Rusty-spotted cats are so tiny and so good at hiding that they rarely get spotted, even though they have a gigantic range throughout South Asia. They live south of the Himalayas from Nepal to Sri Lanka, and the vast forests of India are home to the majority of their population. There are an estimated 10,000 of these tiny cats in the wild, but very little is known about them, and that's for a couple of reasons. First of all is their size. They're slightly shorter than an average house cat, but they're also much leaner. In fact, they're the lightest cats in the world. Adult male rusty-spotted cats weigh just about 1.5 kilos, while a domestic tomcat can be 4 times heavier. They're so tiny that, at birth, they weigh less than a chicken egg. Their title of world's smallest cat is somewhat in dispute, as while they are the lightest cat in the world, the Guinea of South America and the black-footed cat of Southern Africa are both shorter than the rusty-spotted cat. So it depends on how you define smallest. But despite their size, they are lethal predators with incredible speed and agility. 19th century naturalists who kept them captive commented on their climbing skills and amazing ability to catch squirrels in trees. While squirrels and birds' nests are an option, the rusty-spotted cat's favorite prey are frogs, lizards, and small mammals. In the forest, it's easy to sneak up on unsuspecting prey, but in the open grassland, it requires both stealth and speed. This male uses cover of darkness to look for its next meal. It quietly makes its way into open grassland, where its prey is easier to spot. Finally, it sees something delicious, a gerbil. The cat needs to get closer before it pounces, and luckily for him, a small ditch provides cover. The gerbil senses something isn't right. The cat attacks. It's a short chase. Dinner is served. Beside their ninja-like combination of speed and stealth, they have a level of self-confidence that I can only aspire to. Dress for the job you want. There are reports of rusties pouncing on much larger animals, like baby deer, and only letting go when being physically pulled off. They're pretty badass. They've got that lion in them. Wow, wow, wow! Another reason for their success is how they've been able to adapt to several different ecosystems. They live in deciduous forests, hill slopes, and shrublands. And more recently, they've become neighbors with humans. They have adapted to low-density farmland, which makes sense since farms give them access to livestock and to rodents, their favorite prey. Farmland also provides good denning spots for moms, who will feed and protect her kittens until they're old enough to catch meals for themselves. Rusties sometimes munch on poultry, but these attacks are far less common than those perpetrated by their cousins, the leopard cats, who are well-known chicken killers. Nebula. Unfortunately, many farmers have a blanket no-cat policy on their farms and will often shoot on site. Rusty-spotted cats share some of their habitats with some of their closest relatives, fishing cats and leopard cats. Both of these cats are larger than the rusty-spotted cat and have vast ranges. This makes it easier for them to cross swamps. They're fairly similar cats from the same genus and had a common ancestor about 8 million years ago. Rusties were the first species to diverge from the rest of the genus about 6 million years ago. And ever since then, they've established themselves as being one of the most widespread and resilient cats in South Asia. So what should we talk about next? Please let me know in the comments and be sure to subscribe for new episodes every week. Thanks for watching. See ya! Wow, wow, wow! Wow, wow, wow! Wow, wow, wow! Wow, wow! Wait.
wow, wow.
A little high pitch.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh, no. The higher pitch, how? Wow, wow, wow. It's gotta be loud though. Wow, wow, wow. There we go. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow.
We're telling you the entire history of cats. Yes, all of them. From their humble beginnings as civet-like carnivores to the great variety of species of today, it has been a long and windy road. But for millions of years, cats have slowly turned into almost perfect killing machines. So why are there so many cat species? And what happened to the saber